Welcome to Indie Talks, where we talk about games made by smaller companies that contain arguably the same, if not more love and attention as the AAA games. This episode contains mentions of violence, sacrifices, disturbing content, self mutilation, and murder. If you do not like this content, click away and perhaps check out one of the other podcasts done by the members of Wolverine Studios. Thank you and enjoy the talk. Alright, so I've been recently playing a game embarrassingly amount. Y'all might have heard of it before. Y'all heard of a game called Inscription?
A little bit, not much though.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess to give a summary, since you're more shaky on the knowledge of it, it's a very disturbing roguelike game where you play as Luke, a very enthusiastic card collector that has been building up his collection of a card game called Inscription. And then randomly he finds coordinates on one of the cards. He goes to those coordinates with a shovel and ends up digging up a floppy disk of the game, same title of the card game that he's collected. Which is weird because they have not released a game for it. So he comes back, boots it up, and that's where the game starts. The more you play, however, you realize that something is not quite right with this game, as cards, the environment around you, everything just starts to change and take a turn for the worse.
Take a turn for the worst in what way?
Well, a multitude of ways. One of the beginning cards you start with is... Well, I guess I should explain the basics of the game since every card game is different. You start with a base hand of a few different cards, and you have an unlimited access mostly unlimited access to squirrel cards. Squirrel cards are basically your building blocks to your deck because every turn you control either a squirrel or a card from your deck. You play the squirrel, and then the more disturbing parts of it start to come out. Certain cards cost a new unit of payment, blood sacrifices, blood tokens, and you can sacrifice squirrels or any card as long as it's living to play stronger units. The stoat that I mentioned briefly starts to talk to you. And this is about the part where you quickly realize something is not right with this game at all. As the stoat mentioned, it seems to be almost sentient in a way.
Really?
Yeah. He seems... There's actually more cards just like him. You find them later on, though.
The game seems pretty gory, if I'm being honest.
It's... Well, most of it is not even shown. There's no blood. There are some depictions of self-mutilation, but there's no blood, no veins, no guts, no nothing like that. And whenever you sacrifice a card, it just poofs out of existence.
So it kind of disintegrates. Like
It actually...
in the Avengers.
Yeah.
Then a snap.
Yeah, it legitimately kind of looks like that. It just turns kind of blackish and poofs.
So yeah, just like the Thanos snap, except
Yeah.
It doesn't disintegrate. It just turns dark and then poof.
Yeah. In a way. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And the main villain is this... Honestly, he's kind of one of my favorite characters besides someone else, but that's very later on into the game. A almost card master DM kind of guy, dungeon master kind of guy for those D&D fans, named Leshy.
Leshy. Sounds like an Irish name.
I believe he is somewhat Irish, actually. He might be, who knows.
Cool.
He's the one that has seemingly trapped your character in this cabin of his that he forces you to play the game Inscription. Although the stakes are not the same. You are not losing money, you're not taking bets, you aren't taking an embarrassing picture that you'll regret 20 years later. No, your life's on the line. If you lose, which is it's a 5-point system. Whenever you play a card, there's a attack, HP. The HP is, well, the HP of the card. However many attacks, however much damage it can take before it dies. Their attack is, well, I know their attack. If you attack a card, the opponent does not take damage. But if you attack them directly, when there is no card opposing yours, they take direct damage, similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! For anyone that knows that. If you get 5 points, you win. If you take 5 points, you lose. And, well, let's say Leshy likes to remember his opponents in a way. You may be wondering how. He has a magical camera that's actually made every single card that you're using. That almost, I guess, it's almost kind of like how the natives used to think that cameras stole your souls in a way, but this is almost a literal sense of it. He refers to it as a memento or death card. Whenever you die, you will draw random cards 3 different times from your deck. It is the HP, the cost of the card, blood, or other further payments, which the next one is bone tokens. Then your power and your HP, and then your attributes. Different cards have different attributes. Some can fly, some have flying, which attack over cards. Some have flight protection, which protects from flying cards. Some have death's touch, which is insta kill. And after that, he takes a picture and the game restarts, which goes into the roguelike of it. You have a base starting hand, but you start back from the beginning every time you lose.
So in a way, it's kind of like Marvel Snap. So you know, I've been playing recently, except you're trying to get more points instead of or you're trying to get more points over the other person.
In a way, yeah. Now, Leshy also enjoys. He would honestly be probably the best D&D game master you could probably find, because this man has handcrafted so much. Whenever you get to the end of these maps, you will find a boss fight, which Leshy sets up the scenery, describes you who you fight, describes to you approaching the fighter, and then puts on a mask and decides to change his entire personality or corresponding to the first to which boss ever you're fighting. The first one being the Prospector, a gold crazy Prospector. He's an interesting boss, and once you beat him, you move on to the next one. But after you beat him, for the first time at least, the game, quote-unquote, crashes, if I remember correctly. Then we get to the other part of the game, the ARG aspects, or the fictional aspects of the game, where the computer, I am doing very hard quotations here that you cannot see, boots back up, and then you are able to view some vlogs from Luke, our character. After you're done, you go back into the game and restart. This time now with bone tokens. Whenever a card of yours is destroyed, you get a bone token. Same thing with sacrificing them. So now you have 2 currencies, which opens up more cards, more just everything, honestly.
Wow. Honestly, it doesn't sound like any other games I've played.
Yeah, and this is just the first phase, believe it or not, because once you beat him, well, you have to beat him, like, quote-unquote, beat him about 5 times, because the first time you get to the second boss and beat his first phase, Leshy doesn't quite appreciate that you've gotten so far so quickly, and will send out a storm of cards that you basically have no chance of winning against.
So basically, it decimates you?
Yes. It fills the entire field with 4/6 cost cards.
Wow.
4 attack, 6 HP. There is no chance of winning against this, unless you have a really strong deck beforehand. And then you have a death card. And then you get your new death card. Your death card is usually how you can help get back to that, because they might be really powerful or really bad, depending on your luck. I've personally made some pretty strong ones and some pretty bad ones. Once you beat Leshy officially, the game, you end up being able to defeat Leshy with his own camera, because you throughout the game you end up finding a third character, another character, Ladybug, which mentions of a third character between him and the Stoat, which is their first card. The Stunted Wolf. He reveals to you a secret in the cuckoo clock. It's a film roll for the camera that Leshy uses. Once you beat him and take it into the back room to go and get your memento snapped, You grab the camera off the shelf, put the film roll in, and trap Leshy in a card, allowing you to finally start a new game. It's kind of confusing because you don't start a new game. Your new game is running off a continue, but then you make a new game which goes into the second phase of the game, which is no longer a hyper realistic look. It's now almost 8-bit in a way. It's really interesting. It's a fun game.
Sounds kind of confusing, honestly. It
Yeah.
must have been really hard to program.
It must have been a nightmare.
I couldn't imagine.
I'm gonna save the details of the second part because the second part is kind of boring in my opinion. I don't personally like it. And then the third part is probably my most hated. After, long story short, we end up figuring out and the names of the 3 cards that were talking to us. Maleficents. Each one of them are scribes. Leshy's a scribe as well. Maleficus is the stunted wolf. Grimora. Grimora? I don't know. She is the ladybug, or stink bug, not ladybug. And the stoat is PO3. PO3 ends up trapping you in the second phase and bringing you back to a hyper-realistic version in the third part of the game. Now there's an entirely all new mechanics and all that. Honestly, I would say go play the game for yourself to figure it out. But I don't personally like it too much. It's not that fun compared to the first part of the game. The ending of the game, after a while, you find out why this game seems cursed. It contains something that the characters only refer to as the old data. We do not ever know what it is, but it seems to drive Luke insane. He starts yelling at the end of the game, and we can see camera cut back to him pulling the game out of the computer and just smashing it. So whatever he saw was not pleasant at all.
Had to have been insane to draw someone crazy.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what it was he saw.
We never find out. Although there are a lot of theories, and one thing that I believe I remember seeing is something about it possibly being old Soviet code or something like that. I have no clue. It's never really told, and I think it's for the best that we're never told, because that would ruin this, the mystery of it.
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Some things are just better left untold.
Yeah.
Not to mention, hey, if they end up letting out whatever it was he saw, it could end up driving everyone who found out about it mad, so.
Yeah. And the best thing that Grimoire, the stink bug, the scribe of death, she suggests, or not really suggests, she actually does it herself, deleting the game. She causes the entire game to be deleted, and you find the old data just at the tail end of the deletion of the game. During the deletion of the game, you actually play with each scribe for one final time. Each one of them are really cool. You fight with Leshy and Grimoire, each one of them in their own themes. You don't fight PO3 because PO3 got his robotic head ripped off by Leshy. She's him, right? And then my favorite character, Maleficus. He just straight up pulls a Yu-Gi-Oh! You have a whole battle band and all that. It's so cool.
Sounds like fun.
Yes, it's absolutely fun, and I don't know whether this was the developers teasing more that they were going to do but didn't have time to do, or if this was just that all they made. All I know is that I wish there was more Maleficus.
What if they're planning on making an inscription too?
That would be really fun. Honestly. There is an endless mode to the first game called Casey's Mod, so I've still been playing it. In the ending, we find out between those little vlog cuts that Luke has been trying to contact the developer of the game, and it's really weird because he doesn't seem to be able to find much. Then he's threatened by some woman being told to return the game, and he says that he doesn't have it. The third time after he smashes the game, he hears another ring at the doorbell. He goes to yell that he does not have the game, and it's the same woman, and she, let's just say she puts him to sleep for good.
Wow.
And just the last clips of the game, the last minutes of the game is us watching her walk past him and take the game, presumably. That's where it cuts.
Seems pretty interesting, honestly.
Yeah.
A little jury for my interest, but still seems fun nonetheless. I'm a fan of card games.
Yeah, it's a really fun game, and I'm kind of sad that well, actually, it had a beta version of it. It went under a completely different name in a game jam called Sacrifices Must Be Made. And it was really fun then. The main game is really fun. Honestly, I just suggest go and check it out. It's a really good game. It's not that expensive. It's only $20 at most, if I remember correctly. I got it for $20 on PS4. It's a fun game. It's on PS4. They're planning to do physical releases of the game. It's on PC. I believe that's it, actually. Most PC and consoles, you can find it. It's a really fun game. And if you like disturbing card games where you, well, half of this happened, then check it out. All right, that's about all the time that we have, so adios, my friends.
Thank you again for listening to Indie Talks. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you enjoyed it, like the video if you want to be informed of future uploads of Indie Talks or other indie podcasts by our channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon beside the button. Also, support the developer of the game mentioned in this episode, as they did a fantastic job creating it, and we want them to continue growing. That is all from us today. Have a fantastic and safe day.